on Friday, we talked about if these are the same, or sorry, which one of them was right and why. What did we determine about these equations? Okay, so they're equivalent and they're both right. So what about them makes them both right? What about Divya's formula is right? What did Divya do? She used, okay, good. She used the first term. And what has to go along with the first term? The n minus 1. Do we agree with that? First term uses n minus 1. Okay, and then what did Miguel do? The zero term or the initial term. And what goes along with the initial term? Just a regular n, because technically that's an n minus 0, which is just n. Okay, so we determined that they were both correct. Now, for your reference, if you wanted to include it in your toolkit, I've put all of the formulas up on the board that we've done so far. Okay. Now, I have another formula or another question for you. So this one says, Maribel and Ellie were asked to find an explicit formula for the sequence, -9, -27, -81, -243. Maribel says the formula is g of n equals -9 times 3 to the n power, and Ellie says the formula is g of n equals -3 times 3 to the n power. Which one of them is right and why? So I'm going to give you 3 minutes and your group to discuss this and to answer the entire question. Okay? And then I'm going to randomly call on one person from the entire class. I don't know who it's going to be. I'm going to choose your random number, and you're going to give me the answer and an explanation, okay? So take this time to work in your groups to determine who is right and why. The important part is why are they right. So you guys, and that's a good thing. I'm glad that you pointed that out. So Ellie is correct because she used the zero term with n. And quite a few of you in your groups, you told me how to make Maribel's equation correct. What would I have to do to Maribel's formula to make it right? Do an n minus 1 because she used the first term, which needs an n minus 1. Does that make sense? Are we okay with that? Okay, so now I have 2 examples on the next slide. I'm going to do one with you, and then you're going to do the second one. We'll talk about comparing some more formulas. 4 more examples, and then we'll be done for the day. So it's not too long. So I'm going to move on. Okay, that's a good question. What happens if I don't put n minus 1 and I try to solve it? Okay, so, excuse me. Let's say I'm looking for when n equals 1. So I'm looking for the first term. This is how I'm going to check, right? Because I know what the sequence is. I know that the first term should be -9. Now, if I plug this all in, I get -9 times 3 to the 1 power. That gives me -9 times 3 is -27. Is -27 the first term? No, that's how I know it's wrong. Now, let's say I put a minus 1 like we said we needed. What is 1 minus 1? 0. So what is -9 times, what is 3 to the 0 power? What is anything to the 0 power?
1.
What's anything to the 0 power? 1. So what's -9 times 1? That's how I know it's right, okay? That's the reason we have to do minus 1. Technically, Ellie's formula says n minus 0 because it's the 0 term. But do I have to write n minus 0? No, that's just n. Remember I told you if I used the second term, I would do n minus 2 because 2 minus 2 is also 0. So that would give me everything that I needed each time. Okay, that was a good question. We're going to move on to 7 and 8 now. So example 7, this is find the explicit formula for the geometric sequence and then find the 7th term. Do you have to write that full sentence? No, but do you have to write the sequence? Yeah. Do you have to write what I'm looking for? Yeah. So I want to write this equation, or I want to write this explicit formula both ways, using the first term and using the 0 term. So first, I want to find the first term. I want to find my 0 term. And I want to find my multiplier, just so I can fill in all this information. So, if my sequence is 26, 52, 104, what is my first term? What is the first term? 26. It's right there. Read it. What's the first term? 26. Good. And some of you knew, some of you were like, what? That's why I asked again. So the first term is 26. What is the 0 term? Do I know what the 0 term is? Maybe not yet. Okay. Let's look at the multiplier. what is m? How much do I grow by each time? Because this is growth. I multiply by how much? 2. So in order to go backwards, because remember I had 26, 52, 104. If I'm going backwards, what would my 0 term be? 13. Okay, good. Does that make sense? How I found all of these things? Do you have to identify all of those parts every single time? Yes. Not necessarily. Good answer, Sam. So you do have to find the multiplier every single time. And then you either need to find the 0 term or the first term, depending on which explicit formula you're going to write. I asked you to do both. Okay? So if I'm writing my first term, I have f of n equals, and my equation is right here up on the board. My first term is 26. And what goes inside my parentheses? 2. And then I raise it to what power? N minus 1, because that's my first term. Okay, now if I'm using my initial value or my 0 term, I have f of n equals, what's my 0 term? What's my initial value? 13. What goes in my parentheses? 2, and then that's raised to the n power. So those are my 2 explicit formulas. If I asked you this on Friday on our quiz, I said write the explicit formula for the sequence. If you put the red answer, you get full credit. If you put the blue answer, you also get full credit. If you put 26 times 2 to the n power, what did you do wrong? Forgot the minus 1. And I told third period I can almost guarantee that at least 5 of you in every class is going to do that. Just like last time I said this is the mistake you will make on the test, and that was the mistake you made on the test. So be careful. Okay, also if you do 13 times 2 to the n minus 1, that's also wrong for the same reason. Okay? Now, what is the last part of this question? What did I ask you to do? Find the 7th term. So how do I find the 7th term? Plug 7 in. Does it matter which equation I plug it into? No. Which one do we want to do?
Second one.
Okay. I'm going to plug it into both, but I'll solve the second one just so I can show you what it looks like. So I would have f of 7 equals 26 times 2 to the 7 minus 1. And what is 7 minus 1? So I could plug this into my calculator. So actually, don't do anything yet. Now on this second one, I have 13 times 2 raised to the 7th power. Don't do anything on your calculators yet. I don't want you to do anything yet. Okay, if you are on a regular scientific calculator, you're going to do 2 and then the caret symbol or whatever, your base raised to your exponent. It's right under the pi button. If you're on your iPhone or your phone, which I don't recommend because you can't use that on your test, but just so you know for your reference, you're going to press the base. Then there's a little button that says x to the y power. And then you're going to press the power equals, and you'll get the same answer, okay? So if your birthday is in January, in the first half of the year, so January through June, I want you to solve the top one, 26 times 2 to the 6th power. And if your birthday is from July through December, I want you to do the second one and tell me what answer you get, okay? So if your birthday is January through June, you're going to do it using the red equation. And July through December, you're going to use the blue equation. Okay, all my people born in the first half of the year, what was the answer to 26 times 2 to the 6th power? 1,664. What about everybody born in the second half of the year? What was 13 times 2 to the 7th power? 664. So I just did it 2 different ways, and I got the same answer. So does it matter which one you use? No. Okay, now, on a question that's asking me only for the explicit formula, I'm more likely to do it using the first term because I really have to do literally no math to do that. However, if I'm asking for a specific term and I have the 0 term formula, that's a little bit easier, but either way, you'll get the same answer. Can you guys do number 8 for me, please? I want you to write both formulas using both ways and then find the 5th term, please. Okay, did we find our first term? Yes. What is the first term for number 8? 768. Is that our first term? Yeah. What is our 0 term? 3072. Do we agree so far? Okay, now, lastly, I have the multiplier. Am I multiplying on this problem? No, I am dividing by how much? 4, which means I either multiply by 1/4 or divide the whole thing by 4. We talked about that. Okay, do we write our equations? No. The same way as I did in red and blue. Match them up with what I did in red and blue. Match them up with how I did it in the red and the blue. You're just really going to take out the values and put in the ones that you have that correspond to those places. So I have f of n equals, what is my formula using the first term? Good, 768, and what goes in my parentheses? Good, and what's my exponent? Beautiful. What about for my 0 term? F of n equals 3072, 1/4, raised to the n power. Now, which term am I looking for this time? I'm looking for the 5th term. And I'm going to plug that into the blue one. 3072 times 1/4 to the 5th power. Now, can you technically divide by 4 or 5 times? Yes. If I put a question on the test that said find the 50th term, is that a good use of your time? No. So instead, on your calculators, you're going to do 1 divided by 4 equals, because that's 1/4. Then what power are you going to raise it to? To the 5th power, and you should get like a really long decimal. Okay. And what do you do with that decimal? What do you do with the long decimal? Multiply it, yeah, by 3072. So what is f of 5? Equals 3. Do we agree? Yes or no? Okay, do you understand what we're doing right now? Okay, I have one more question for you about who is right, and then 4 of just practicing arithmetic and geometric formulas, okay? So we are almost done for the day. We have 5 more examples, and 4 of them are you tries. I saw, are you okay? Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to our next one. So, are you okay, April? I know, that's what you all do every time you walk in my classroom. Ew, math, I have to add and subtract and multiply again. Okay, number 9 says, Devin and Esther were asked to find an explicit formula for the sequence 30, 150, 750, and 3750. Devin says the formula is h of n equals 30 times 5 to the n minus 1 power. And Esther thinks it's 6 times 5 to the n power, okay? So I'm going to let you think for 30 seconds. Then I'll give you 30 seconds to discuss in your groups, and then I will ask for some answers. I have a question for you. Now, please listen to my question carefully and answer the question that I'm asking you, okay? Is Devin right?
Yes.
Is Esther right?
Yes.
So then what does that mean?
They're both right.
Okay, so how are they both right? What makes them both right?
Because
they're using both formulas.
Yes, they're using both formulas. What did you say, Jessica? I heard 0 term. Okay, so Esther, yes. Esther uses the 0 term, which is 6, and n goes with it. And then Devin uses the first term of 30, and he uses n minus 1. Do we all agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, does that make some more sense? Okay. Now, will they always both be right? No, it just so happens that they have been, because I want you to see. I want you to compare them. We're doing less contrasting and more comparing. But now I'm going to give you your last 4 questions, and we have about 14 minutes left. So I'm going to give you, that is more than enough time. I'm going to give you about half of that time to work. Then I'll check in with you, and then in the last couple minutes of class, we'll check our answers, okay? So here are your last 4. I want you to do, listen please, there are 4 questions. I'll wait until I have all your attention. There are 4 questions. I would like you to find the explicit formula using the first term for 2 of them, and the zero term for 2 of them. It doesn't matter to me which one is which, but I want you to practice finding the first term formulas and the zero term formulas, okay? I'm going to give you about 8 minutes to work on that. Okay, number 1. Shh, let's focus. If you used the zero term, is this what you got?
Yeah.
And if you use the first term, is this what you got? Okay, and then what is f of 8? If I plug in 8, what do I get? No?
I did this completely.
15. Okay, do we have questions about the formula? Did we mess something up with the formula that you want me to go over? Okay, we need to be careful, okay? Remember, the amount that you add or subtract by is attached to the variable, okay? The zero or the first term is the add or subtract off to the side. Okay, are you good with number 1? Okay, have you finished number 2? Can I go over that answer? Are you done with number 2? If not, it's been 8 minutes, so you got to learn to write faster. Okay, if you use the zero term for number 2, here's your answer. If you use the first term, is this your answer? Okay, and what is the 8th term for this sequence? Negative 31. Are you done with 3 and 4? Yes? Yes, we're done with 3 and 4?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, number 3, if you used the zero term, is that what you got for the zero term? And for the first term, and again, instead of writing times 1/2, you could always do like literally divide by 2 to the end. I haven't showed you that today, but if you were doing that before, it still works. And then f of 8 is 3/16, which is what did you all get on your calculators? You get a decimal? Which is 0.1875. Is that what we got? And Diego, if you were going to round that, it wouldn't be 18. It would be 0.19 if you're rounding it to 2 decimal places. So if you went from 1875, that doesn't round to 18, it rounds to 19 or to 0.2. Finally, number 4. Shh. The zero term is you could either put 0.6 or literally 3 divided by 5. And your first term. Do we get these right?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is our 8th term for number 4? This is a big number. 234,000. Yes, thank you. 375. Do you get that? Okay, now before you pack up, you have 2 minutes. I want you to show me, out of 4, how many did you get right? 4 meaning you got them all right. Anything less means you got that many less. Okay, if you got a 0, 1, or a 2, you need to come to tutoring or to 4th period. Or you need to identify the mistake you keep making.